Runaway Bride in the Seychelles Part 4. Chapter 19, The Snake in the Mansion. There were snakes in the Moreau family. Allegra had always known it. She just didn't know one of them shared her blood. The Moreau estate in Provence was a fortress of wealth and illusion. Built during the Napoleonic era, it now housed boardroom betrayals and champagne-soaked manipulation behind its chiseled stone walls. The house smelled like roses and secrets. Allegra hadn't returned since she'd run from her wedding. But now, dressed in black silk and a veil of grief, she arrived under cover of mourning, another pawn on the chessboard, cloaked in tragedy and waiting to strike. She was done playing innocent. She was here to hunt. Her heels clicked softly across the marble foyer as she entered the drawing room. The fire was low, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Her mother sat by the window with a crystal flute of something aged and gold, barely looking up as Allegra entered. "Back so soon," her mother murmured. "We thought you'd go hide in the Alps for a few weeks. Or join a monastery." Still grieving, Allegra said flatly. "Just doing it closer to the source." "You always did enjoy making a scene," her mother replied. But Allegra didn't answer. She was already scanning the room, memorizing who was there. The cousins. The board members. The vultures circling the empire. And then she saw him. Julian. Tall. Trim. Moreau jawline, perfect skin, expensive watch. Her cousin. Her childhood playmate. Her date to cotillions and charity galas when they were both too young for anything but posturing. He smiled when he saw her. Too smoothly. She smiled back. Like a knife sheathed in velvet. She walked up to him and handed him a glass of wine. "Thought you might be thirsty." He arched a brow. "From you? I should check it for poison." "Oh," she said softly, "if I were going to poison you, you'd already be dead." They drank. A beat of silence passed between them. Then Julian leaned close. "You're not yourself, Allegra." "No," she agreed. "I'm better." She reached into her purse and pulled out a silver flash drive. "Found this in Kai's effects," she said, loud enough for only him to hear. "Encrypted. Buried deep. But when I opened it, well." Julian's smile faltered just a fraction. Allegra stepped closer. "I found wire transfers. Travel manifests. IP traces." He blinked. "I found you." His mask shattered. 1 heartbeat. 2. Then he grabbed her wrist and yanked her into the study just off the main hall, slamming the door behind them. "I warned you not to come back here," he hissed. "And you should have picked a better password," she snapped. Julian's eyes gleamed now, sharp and unhinged. "You never had the stomach for this game. You were the pretty one. The one they paraded like a silk doll. But you were never going to survive this world." "I survived, Lucian," she shot back. "Because I let you." Silence. Her mouth parted. "What?" Julian stepped forward, the room closing in around them like a vice. "Who do you think gave him your location in Marrakech?" he said softly. "Who do you think told him about the villa in Seychelles? The boat transfer? The security gaps?" "No," she whispered. "You wouldn't." "I watched you," Julian went on, unblinking. "I watched you fall for that mercenary like a schoolgirl. I watched you throw away everything, power, legacy, control, for a man with a gun and a sob story. You sold me out," she whispered. "I protected you," he hissed. "Until you became a liability." Her voice broke. You're my family. He smiled now, cruel and small. And you were supposed to marry me. Allegra froze. He stepped closer. It was always meant to be us. Me and you. The heirs. The bloodline. The only two who could hold the Moreau throne together. She recoiled. You're sick. I'm practical, he said. But you ruined that. You let the bodyguard crawl into your bed, into your heart, into your future. He leaned close. But it's not too late. She laughed once, sharp and hollow. Oh, Julian. It's so late. He grabbed her arm. She moved fast, too fast. The self-defense training from Kai kicked in. Elbow to the jaw. Heel to the knee. Palm strike to the solar plexus. Julian went crashing into the antique desk with a gasp. She stood over him, breathing hard, fists clenched. You're going to answer for everything, she said, voice shaking. I'll never be arrested, he spat. Who said anything about the police? She turned. And found Kai in the doorway. Alive. In a black shirt. A faint scar on his temple. Eyes full of fury. Allegra blinked. Julian paled. But you're dead. Kai stepped forward. Funny how that works when you need to flush out a rat. Julian lunged, but Kai was faster. One punch. Two. Julian crumpled. Kai looked at Allegra, chest heaving. You okay? She nodded. And then, without thinking, she stepped into his arms and kissed him like she hadn't tasted breath in days. Behind them, Julian groaned on the floor, bleeding. But Allegra didn't look back. Not anymore. Chapter 20, Betrayal at Sunset. It was always going to end in fire. The Moreau Masquerade Ball was the social event of the year, an annual opulence parade staged at the family's Grand Riviere estate, a 17th-century chateau perched on the edge of a lavender valley. 1,000 glittering guests. Champagne towers 6 feet high. Violins weeping in candlelight. But this year it was war. The ballroom glowed in gold and crimson, masked guests waltzing beneath massive glass chandeliers imported from Venice, their laughter a cover for deception. Feathers, jewels, silk, each face hidden behind carefully sculpted anonymity. But Allegra didn't need to guess who was behind the lion mask near the grand staircase. Julian. He was alive, bruised but smug, freshly re-emerged after what he claimed was a riding accident in Tuscany. His mouth curled with charm. His hand rested too easily on the shoulder of the next heiress he'd chosen as his pawn. His eyes scanned the crowd, hunting. Allegra watched from the mezzanine in a black mask, her gown a flowing waterfall of jet silk. On her hand, the jade ring. Around her heart, a ticking bomb. Beside her, Kai stood in full black. No mask. No apologies. He didn't need to hide. He was done hiding. You ready for this? He asked, adjusting the cuff of his jacket with military precision. Allegra's eyes never left Julian. I was born ready. Kai's eyes flicked to the ballroom below. Exit points confirmed. Malik's team is in place. We have exactly 12 minutes to extract the files Julian's hiding, and make sure he can't run. And after that? Kai looked at her. Then we burn it all down. She smiled. The plan was simple. Allegra would distract Julian, draw him in, get him talking, give Kai time to slip into the East Wing where Julian's private study held the encrypted server connected to Lucien's financial network. The evidence they needed to finally expose the entire operation. Easy. Elegant. Until it wasn't. Because Julian saw her. The moment she stepped into the ballroom, mask glittering beneath the chandeliers, his eyes locked onto her like a vulture spotting a wounded dove. He crossed the ballroom in 6 smooth steps, pulling her close before she could speak. "You wore black," he said, smiling. "Fitting, considering your last wedding ended in a funeral." Her breath didn't hitch. She wouldn't give him that. "Would you believe me if I said I came to dance?" Julian tilted his head. "Oh, Allegra. You came to finish it." And then, they danced. Around them, the music swelled into a rich waltz. Her body moved on muscle memory, instinct, rage. She let him guide her, pretending to melt into his hands, pretending to be the perfect puppet he once dreamed her to be. He leaned in. "You always were the most beautiful disaster," she whispered against his ear. "And you were always the smallest man in the room." His smile froze. And somewhere behind them, an explosion sounded, sharp, controlled. Kai had found the server. Everything changed. Julian pulled away. "What did you do?" Allegra dropped the mask. "Checkmate." Gunfire erupted in the East Wing. The crowd screamed. Panic bloomed like wildfire. Julian grabbed her wrist and yanked her behind a velvet curtain just off the ballroom, dragging her into the back corridor. But Allegra was faster this time. She spun, elbowed him hard in the ribs, then slapped him with the full force of every betrayal. "You tried to kill me," she spat. "You should have married me," he hissed. "You never would have suffered." She raised her chin. "I would have died inside." Julian lunged. She dodged, stumbled. And Kai appeared. Out of the smoke. Covered in blood and grit, holding a broken chair leg like a club. "You're done," he growled. Julian didn't run. He attacked. The two men collided with brutal force, Kai slamming Julian into the wall, Julian landing a savage punch to Kai's temple. Glass shattered. The air filled with heat. Flames licked up the hallway, something had exploded near the wine cellar. Allegra backed away as Kai grabbed Julian by the collar and threw him back through the curtain, into the ballroom. And straight into a massive, glittering chandelier. Crash. Glass exploded. Screams. Light and crystal rained down like a jeweled apocalypse. Julian fell in a tangled heap of broken crystal and velvet, blood blooming on the marble like ink. The crowd ran in all directions. Flames climbed the drapes. Smoke poured into the ballroom. Allegra stared at Julian's motionless form. Her heart thundered. Her hands trembled. And then, everything went black. She crumpled. Kai caught her just before she hit the ground. "Allegra," he shouted, lifting her into his arms as the fire blazed behind them. "Stay with me." But she was already unconscious, her head slumped against his chest, lips parted, body limp. He looked back once, at the burning wreck of empire, lies, and blood. Then he carried her into the smoke. And didn't stop running. Chapter 21, Running No More. They vanished. No phones. No press. No security feeds. No satellite trackers. No whispers of Moreau. No ghosts of Wolfe. Just ocean. And the hut. It was hidden deep in the outer Seychelles, on an island so small it didn't appear on tourist maps. There were no roads, no power lines, no villas built into the cliffs, Just lush green jungle and a crescent beach wrapped in coral and birdsong. The hut itself was simple: bamboo walls, a palm-thatched roof, open slats for windows. A bed carved from driftwood. A hammock swaying lazily on the porch. A shower fed by a waterfall 2 minutes into the trees. It was Eden, ruined and reborn. And it was theirs. Kai carried Allegra into the hut that first night, her body still recovering from the smoke inhalation, her skin pale but her heart beat steady. He laid her on the bed, her hair damp from the ocean rinse he'd given her after they'd abandoned the burning estate and escaped the mainland by boat. For 12 hours, she didn't wake. He never left her side. And when her eyes finally fluttered open, meeting his, bloodshot and tired and so impossibly full, he whispered. "You're safe." She whispered back. "I know." They didn't speak about Julian. Or the chandelier. Or the fire that gutted the Moreau legacy like rot peeled open. They didn't speak about Kai's fake death or the weeks of betrayal that followed. Not at first. They just existed. Allegra moved like a ghost for the first day, soft, slow, drifting. She let Kai guide her to the shore, to the hammock, to the tiny kitchen where he cracked coconuts with his bare hands and grilled fish over an open flame. She laughed for the first time on the second day. Not a polite heiress laugh. Not a press-trained giggle. But a full, deep, sun-warmed laugh, when Kai slipped while climbing a mango tree and nearly fell into the pond. "You're not bulletproof, you know," she teased, handing him a towel. He smirked. "Don't tell the tabloids." By day 3, they were tangled in sheets again, skin on skin, kissing like memory and promise. No rush. No fear. No need to claim each other for protection. Just want. They slept late. They cooked together. They swam nude beneath the stars. They didn't say "I love you." They didn't need to. It was stitched into every look. Every touch. Every quiet moment shared under mosquito nets and moonlight. By day 5, Allegra picked wildflowers and braided them into Kai's hair while he pretended not to mind. "I used to think I'd end up in a glass tower," she said. "Married off to someone with an empire and a 5-point plan." Kai raised an eyebrow. Lucian had a plan. Just not a pulse. She smiled, but then sobered. "I used to think love would come with paperwork. With obligation. With sacrifice." He brushed a flower from her cheek. "And now? Now I think love looks like this," she said. "No ring. No crown. Just peace." He nodded, quiet. They watched the tide roll in. By day 6, neither of them had touched a phone. The outside world was a dream. Lucian was in custody. Julian was in a coma. The Moreau board was scrambling. And the empire had collapsed into beautiful, poetic chaos. But none of it touched them here. Here, they were just Kai and Allegra. No contracts. No headlines. No more running. By day 7, she lay with her head on his chest as the wind drifted through the slats of the hut, the world hushed in green and blue. "You think it's over?" she asked. Kai looked at the ceiling. "No. But we're different now." "Yes," he said, stroking her hair. "Because we're not running from anything anymore." She looked up at him. "So what are we running to?" He smiled. "Something better." And for the first time in her entire life, Allegra Moreau didn't feel like a hostage in a diamond cage. She felt free. Loved. Home. Chapter 22, The Proposal, Again. The sky was lavender when he asked. Not pink. Not red. Not the dramatic blaze of passion, but a soft, lingering lavender, like the world itself was exhaling. The sun dipped beneath the edge of the sea, casting long shadows across the sand as if time were slowing down for this moment. Allegra stood ankle-deep in the surf, her white linen dress dancing around her legs, her fingers trailing through the foam like she was tracing a dream. The jade ring shimmered on her finger, catching the last light of day. Kai watched her from the edge of the jungle. He had a plan. This time, not a tactical one. Not a war room blueprint. Not an ambush or a decoy or an escape route. No. This was a heart plan. No more secrets. No more running. Just truth. He took the ring from his pocket. Not jade. Not diamond. But a simple platinum band with a single, pale sapphire, clear, like the water where he first found her again. It wasn't a symbol of empire. It was a symbol of freedom. She turned when she heard him approaching. Kai, she asked, barefoot and glowing, eyes wide in the dusk. He didn't say anything. Just knelt. Right there in the sand. One knee down. Hands steady. Face open. No mask. No armor. No past. Only now. Allegra gasped. She froze. Her hands trembled. Kai looked up at her, the ring balanced carefully in his palm. I've proposed 1,000 things in my life, he said. Security plans. Rescue missions. Covert ops. But I've never proposed something that terrified me and grounded me this much at the same time. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. I don't need the world to bless us, he continued. I don't need a cathedral or a headline or your father's signature. I just need you. He swallowed. And if this is the only moment I get to say it properly, then let it be this one. He held the ring up to her. Allegra Moreau, will you marry me? Her heart exploded in her chest. Tears rose so fast she couldn't blink them away. She stepped back once, instinctively, overwhelmed by the sheer weight of everything in front of her. Then she dropped to her knees in the sand, right there with him, the waves kissing their feet. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Kai. God, yes. The ring slipped onto her finger like it had always belonged there. And then they were laughing. Laughing through tears, through kisses, through the mess of emotion that had been building since Paris, since Marrakech, since that first bullet, that first kiss, that first moment of impossible love. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was gravity. She buried her face in his chest and sobbed against his heartbeat. It was the happiest she'd ever been. It was the most honest either of them had ever felt. And when they finally lay side by side in the sand, her head on his shoulder and his hand resting over her stomach, Allegra whispered. We're not doing the public thing again. No grand ballroom. No royal circus. Kai chuckled. Agreed. We elope. He grinned. Deal. Just us, she said. And maybe a priest who doesn't care about name brands. I know a guy, Kai replied. Works for diamonds and coconuts. She laughed again. It echoed across the beach like a song. And that night, they lay under the stars, engaged, free, untouchable. Not because their enemies were gone, but because they no longer controlled the ending. Chapter 23, Wedding on the Waves. It wasn't the wedding Allegra Moreau's mother had envisioned. There were no photographers. No designer gowns stitched in Paris. No threated champagne fountain or pearl-embroidered seating charts. No diplomats. No stockholders. No curated guest list. And thank God for that. Because what she got instead was perfect. A private yacht, Kai's yacht, anchored just off an untouched islet in the Indian Ocean, surrounded by nothing but turquoise water and the lull of waves like a sacred rhythm. No press. No drones. No threats. Just sunlight and salt and the kind of peace that once felt like a fairy tale. The sky was clear. The breeze was soft. The deck smelled like teakwood and citrus. Allegra stood barefoot on white linen laid over warm planks, wearing a silk dress that clung like a second skin, simple, backless, fluttering in the breeze. Her hair tumbled around her shoulders in soft waves, threaded with a single white hibiscus. No veil. No heirloom tiara. Just her. Just Rayal. Kai waited for her at the bow. He wore a white linen shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow, collar open, barefoot like her. No tie. No weapon. No past clinging to his shoulders. Just his heart, wide open. Malik stood between them, holding a leather-bound book he'd found that morning in a drawer labeled Navigation and Other Lies. "I'm not legally qualified to marry anyone," Malik warned them with a smirk. "Neither was the priest at my last wedding," Allegra replied. Kai smiled at her then, so softly it made her breath catch. They met at the center of the deck, the ocean shimmering behind them. "All right," Malik cleared his throat. "We're gathered here today because two people ran from their own funerals, burned down a family empire, faked a death, escaped pirates, exposed a traitor, and still, somehow, ended up wanting to be legally bound together." Allegra laughed. Kai didn't stop looking at her. Malik turned to Allegra. "Do you, Allegra Moreau, take this ex-bodyguard, former mercenary, and current obsession to be your not legally binding but emotionally irreversible husband?" "I do," she said, eyes wet. "With all that I am. Even the parts still healing." Malik nodded. "And do you, Kai Wolfe, take this heiress, fugitive, and international scandal to be your highly inconvenient, wildly dangerous, and devastatingly beautiful wife?" "I do," Kai said, voice rough. "Even if the whole world tries to take her back, they'll have to go through me." Malik closed the book. "I now pronounce you legally ambiguous but cosmically inevitable." "Perfect," Allegra whispered. Kai leaned in, cupped her cheek, and kissed her, slow, deep, and full of everything they didn't say. There were no fireworks. But it felt like the sky cracked open. Malik whooped. Somewhere, a crew member played an off-key saxophone. A bottle of champagne was popped. The cork flew into the sea. And on that sun-drenched deck, surrounded by nothing but sky and water, Allegra and Kai held each other like survivors. Like lovers. Like equals. They danced with bare feet and no music. They toasted with laughter and sunburned shoulders. They promised nothing but honesty. Passion. War if needed. Peace whenever possible. And when night fell and the stars returned, Allegra whispered, "This isn't the end, is it?" Kai smiled, arms around her waist. "No," he said. "It's finally the beginning." Chapter 24, One Last Bombshell. They should have known peace couldn't last. The morning after the yacht wedding, the ocean was a sheet of glass. Kai was making coffee, shirtless, barefoot, humming an off-key tune. Allegra wore nothing but one of his button-downs and the sapphire ring on her finger. Her hair was tangled, her lips still swollen from the night before, her heart weightless for the first time in her life. Then the message came. A secure file, routed through 3 encryption layers. A barcode envelope delivered by drone, hovering at the edge of the yacht's radar. Kai opened it. And every muscle in his body locked. Allegra was still stretching on the deck, lazy and half-sleeping, when she heard him call her name. She turned, and one look at his face drained the warmth from her limbs. She approached him slowly. "What is it?" He handed her the tablet. "You need to see this." Inside the folder was a single document, a scan of a sealed court record, dated 28 years ago. Her name was there. Allegra Gabrielle Moreau. Only it wasn't her birth certificate. It was her adoption certificate. Adopted. Sealed. Hidden. Buried beneath legal layers her father had spent millions to suppress. She sat down, the air rushing out of her lungs like a vacuum. "Lucian," she whispered. There was a second file. A video. She opened it. Lucian's face filled the screen. Bruised, pale, bitter, but triumphant. "Bonjour, Allegra." Surprise. "You always wondered why you didn't look like your mother, didn't you? Why your father kept you so close and so far away at the same time? Because you're not his. Not by blood. You're an orphan, Allegra. Taken in after a scandal no one wanted to talk about. The Moreaus raised you to look perfect. To marry well. But you were never the heir. Not truly. Not legally. Not genetically. And now, I've filed with the courts to invalidate your inheritance." Tick-tock. The screen went dark. Allegra stared ahead, stunned. The wind picked up, salty and sudden. Adopted. Disinherited. Erased. All her life, she'd been groomed for a crown that was never hers. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. "He's trying to break me." Kai crouched in front of her, his eyes calm, steady, storm-proof. "Let him try." "You don't understand," she said. "If this is real, if it holds in court, then I have nothing. No board seat. No claim. No trust. The Moreau name isn't mine." Kai tilted her chin up. "That name never deserved you." She shook her head. "It's all I've ever been." "No," he said softly. "You've been so much more. And now you're free." She looked at him, eyes burning. "Free and broke." He laughed. Actually laughed. She frowned. "Why are you smiling?" He pulled up his own tablet, flicked through several screens with practiced precision, and then turned it toward her. Wolfe Global Holdings. Net worth, $26.7 billion. Allegra's mouth dropped. Kai shrugged. "I've been busy." "You, what?" "Remember that security firm I started after I left your father's service," he said casually. "Expanded. Merged with a couple of AI surveillance companies. Launched a few satellite defense systems. Invested in a few energy startups." She blinked. "You're worth more than the entire Moreau empire." He nodded. "Almost double, actually." "But who's counting?" She stared at him. "You let me think I was the only one with the money." "You needed to believe in your own power," he said simply. "Not mine." Tears threatened. "I don't care about the money. I care that Lucian tried to reduce me to it. Again." "And he failed," Kai said. "Again." Allegra stood slowly, the waves crashing behind her like applause. "I'm going to face him," she said. I'm going to walk into that courtroom, look him in the eye, and show him that even without a fortune, even without a name, I still have something he never will. Kai stood beside her. What's that? She turned, took his hand, and placed it over her heart. Everything. Chapter 25, The End of the Game. It began with the scent of smoke. Not the romantic kind, not Kai's sandalwood cologne or the drift of grilled fish on the open-air deck. No, this was harsh. Bitter. Acrid. And it was coming from below. Allegra looked up from her morning coffee, her hair wild from the wind, the sapphire ring glinting as she set her cup down. She narrowed her eyes. Something was wrong. The water surrounding the yacht was too still. Too quiet. Then, the alarms. A shrill, piercing wail from the engine room, followed by the sound of boots on steel. Fast. Frantic. Then, shouting. Unidentified vessel approaching port side, someone yelled. Small craft, no flag. Kai burst up from the lower deck, already pulling on his holster. Lock the bridge. Allegra, inside, now. But she was already moving. Already running toward the danger. Because she knew that smell. That silence. That kind of entrance. Lucien. The devil had returned for his final act. And this time, he came with fire. A sleek black boat had latched itself onto the side of the yacht like a parasite. 5 men in black were climbing the rails. And in the middle of them, wearing a white linen suit like death dressed for brunch, was Lucien Delacroix. His smile was acid. Darling, he called out, stepping onto the deck with theatrical ease, a small gold pistol swinging at his side. Miss me? Allegra stood her ground. She didn't flinch. Not even as Kai moved beside her, gun raised, ready to drop him on sight. Lucien, she said, her voice steady. You just can't help yourself, can you? He laughed. Well, you know how I hate loose ends. And you, sweetheart, are a very expensive one. Shoot him, Kai growled. Lucien held up a detonator. Not unless you want this entire yacht to go up like a champagne bottle on Bastille Day. Kai froze. Allegra's blood went cold. Planted charges, she whispered. You'd kill us both. I'd sleep like a baby, Lucien replied. The guards aimed their weapons. One lunged toward Kai. Gunfire exploded. Chaos broke loose. Malik's men fought back with precision, but Lucien was fast. He darted across the deck, toward the staircase leading to the captain's cabin. Allegra ran after him. Kai, don't follow, she shouted. It's me he wants. Lucien ducked into the cabin, locking the door behind him. Allegra didn't hesitate. She grabbed a flare gun from the emergency panel and kicked the door in with everything she had left. Inside, Lucien was standing at the console, rigging the detonator to the ship's fuel line. You think I won't do it, he snarled. You think I care about going down with the ship? I think, Allegra said, raising the flare gun, you've spent your whole life trying to sink mine. He turned, wild-eyed. You're nothing without the Moreau name. She took a step forward. Then it's a good thing I don't have it anymore. I made you, he hissed. I shaped you. She smiled, slow and devastating. No, she said. You chased me. You hunted me. You tried to own me. But I was never yours. Lucien lunged. She fired. The flare slammed into his chest, not a bullet, but a blast of fire and force. He screamed, staggered backward, tripped over the captain's chair. and crashed through the glass wall of the cabin, falling 3 decks below with a sickening smash that shattered everything in its path. He landed beneath the chandelier that hung above the luxury dining room, because of course he did. Glass. Blood. Smoke. He was alive, barely. Writhing. Defeated. Kai appeared beside her seconds later, breathless. "Where is he?" She pointed. Kai looked over the shattered balcony, let out a long, low whistle. "Dramatic." "He earned it," Allegra said. Kai pulled her into his arms. Below them, the fire suppression system kicked in. Crewmen moved in to disarm the explosives. Malik was already barking orders into a radio. It was over. Really over. Lucien would survive long enough to face every court, every betrayal, every ruined scheme. And Allegra. She walked out of the captain's cabin in bare feet and a white robe, blood on her knees, soot on her arms, hair tangled by sea and wind. And radiant. She climbed to the top deck with Kai, wrapped her arms around him as the sun rose again, and whispered. "We end it here. No more secrets. No more shadows." He nodded. "Only light." And when the reporters finally caught up to the story days later, they asked. "How does it feel to lose everything, Miss Moreau?" She smiled. "I didn't lose anything," she said. "I finally let it go." Then she turned toward Kai, kissed him like the world had just begun. And sailed into her next life with her heart unchained. The runaway bride had finally arrived. Epilogue, 6 months later. Peace, papayas, and paradise. The island didn't have a name. Technically, it was listed on the map as C-17 uninhabited, a coral ring east of May, once used as a military observation post and later forgotten entirely. But Allegra called it home. The sky above was sapphire clear, the ocean a mirror of it, and the wind carried the scent of mango trees, grilled fish, and salt-drenched serenity. She was 7 months pregnant. Her belly curved beneath a gauzy caftan, and her ankles were slightly swollen. But she didn't care, not when the world had narrowed down to this life, this rhythm, this freedom. From heiress to fugitive to barefooted goddess of a tiny private Eden. Kai had built them a villa, not the kind her father would have commissioned, but a smart, sustainable eco-paradise powered by solar panels and shaded by flowering vines. Bamboo walls, open-air everything, and a bathtub carved into volcanic stone where she could float for hours. Malik had tried to get them to move closer to civilization. Kai had responded by putting a guarded drone in Malik's shower as a joke. Lucien was in an international prison, awaiting trial at The Hague. Julian had miraculously survived, but was now a tabloid punchline and the subject of 3 Netflix documentaries called The Blood Cousin, Chandelier Fall, and The Heiress Who Said Nope. And the Moreau board. Bankrupt. Rebranded. Forgotten. Today, Allegra sat on the villa porch, sipping coconut water from a shell as Kai paced barefoot across the sand, muttering into a secure satellite phone. "Malik, if you try to name the baby without consulting us again, I will replace you with a robot. Yes, even a cute one. No, we're not naming her after your motorcycle. Goodbye." He clicked it off and turned toward Allegra. "She tried to kick when you said motorcycle," Allegra said, smiling. Kai knelt in front of her and pressed his lips to her belly. That was a warning. He looked up at her, softer now. "You okay?" "More than okay," she said. "I never imagined this kind of life. But I can't imagine giving it up now." Kai stood and kissed her forehead. "You won't have to. I'll keep you and her safe." Always. She rolled her eyes, mock exasperated. You've already turned into a protective Papa Wolf. You married a wolf, he smirked. It was bound to happen. They watched the sun dip toward the horizon. In the trees behind them, birds chirped lazily. The world, for once, wasn't chasing them. Allegra reached out, took his hand. Do you miss it? She asked softly. The chaos. The war. The edge. He paused. Then squeezed her fingers. No, he said. Not when I've got this. A pause. Then. But if another Delacroix rises from the ashes, I might need to dust off the guns. Allegra laughed. Let's just teach our daughter how to outshoot him. Deal. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Think she'll be wild like me? Kai kissed her hair. Wilder. The stars began to blink into the sky. And in the silence between the waves and the wind, the world whispered. Happily ever after, on their terms.
Thanks for listening to Billionaire Romance Stories, where love meets luxury in the most unexpected places. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. We love hearing your favorite twists and wild theories. And don't forget to ring that bell, because in this world of yachts, secrets, and steamy romance, the next story is always one scandal away.